Hi everyone, this is Real World Audio, and it's been a while since I done one of these slideshow videos, and this is going to be a short one, so do not worry. If you are new to my channel, then please like and subscribe, because if you don't subscribe, then probably you will never ever see another video of mine again, as YouTube does not really show my videos for new people. I have very few new viewers. Most of the channel viewers are subscribed, and that's because of YouTube algorithm. YouTube only shows on your YouTube front page those channels who have tens of thousands of subscribers, and as you have guessed, this channel is not one of those. So here we go. This is about performance of audio gear, and maybe you have wondered about this, but performance parameters, they come in pairs, and they work in a way against each other. So for example, there's the resolution and tonality duo. If you increase the resolution of an equipment, then the tonality will suffer at any given price point. And this is something you really have to be aware about. So if you have a certain budget and you are looking for a product, then you can pick one parameter. Either it will have a great tone or it will have high resolution, but the two do not come together. If you want them together, it will be something at a higher price category. That's how it works. And this is because when you increase resolution of a gear, of an amplifier, for example, then it will also start to reveal the weaknesses of that amplifier, and that's going to impact the tonality a lot. And also a lot of methods that amplifier manufacturers or engineers use to improve resolution, they affect the sound. So for example, error correction is one method to use it, and when you use error correction to increase apparent resolution, it will not mean that your amplifier will provide more detail from the recording, not at all. It's going to also erase some details and highlight certain details, and those highlights will create the illusion that the resolution is increasing. And don't get me wrong, because a lot of the resolution that you hear from audio systems is real, it is happening. And there are lots of very high resolution products that you can buy, but you have to be aware that when resolution comes at the price of tonality, that's when the naughtiness starts to pop up. So that's when certain techniques are employed that cheat our brains to think that it's more resolution coming from the recording. I will tell you one example from the loudspeaker world that can cheat the resolution is when you use phasing. So for example, the mid-range is out of phase, then you will perceive it as an apparent resolution increase in the high frequencies, and in the bass you will think that that loudspeaker has excellent bass, while in truth it has average bass, but its poor mid-range makes your brain focus on the bass and on the high frequencies. And that's why you will start noticing things you never noticed about on the recording, because your attention is focused away from the mid-range. And in the mid-range, our brain is pretty good at picking up details. So if you are presented with even, let's say, 10 times less detail than normal, your brain kind of ignores it at an A/B test. However, after a long while, you will be wondering, why am I so bored with this loudspeaker, even though it has great bass, great high end, but still I want something else, I need my fix. That's the reason. And also that's why the tonality is so poor. Another pair like that is the imaging and dynamics duo. So if you keep on increasing your image, your stereo image, so it gets more and more pinpoint, like more 3D, more holographic, then the dynamics will suffer. And this is especially true for loudspeakers. And this is what we are seeing today, that the smaller and smaller loudspeakers allow us to have more and more sharp images, like really, really accurate, almost like looking at porcelain dolls, like really etched, really uh, detached from each other, so you can almost like see the instruments in the air, and you can visually perceive what is an extent of a guitar, how far it extends, where it is. However, when you see that at a certain price range, if you see it much more than usual, it will come at the cost of dynamics. And that is because making the loudspeaker more compact and image sharper because of narrow baffle, narrow front baffle. So this extremely sharp imaging is almost always achieved by making the front panel of the loudspeaker as narrow as possible. And this has been the loudspeaker trend for the past 10-20 years, going for narrower and narrower cabinets. But this is going to cost us in the department of dynamics. And that's why when you have these more and more pinpoint images, it comes at decreased dynamics, because these tinier, smaller cabinets are unable to reproduce a wide dynamic range. And this will result in also limiting the volume, the useful volume of the loudspeaker. You will be starting to obsess of what is the correct volume to play my loudspeaker at. And to have the dynamic range, you need big cabinet for that with efficient drivers. Then the dynamic range will open up, but as you go with a bigger baffle size, your pinpoint imaging will change, and the sound will not give you visual cues, such sharp visual cues anymore. And many of us, when we are exposed to that, feel that this is a step back towards that 3D holographic imaging. And I was really wondering about that too, and I did a lot of comparisons. Like I had people, like observing people talking in my room, playing music instruments, and actually when you go the dynamics route, the bigger loudspeaker cabinet route, the wide front baffle route, that gives a much more accurate reproduction. So instruments and voices sound much more real compared to the sharp and miniature images that the accurate tiny cabinets, narrow face cabinets reproduce. I'm not saying one is better than the other. They are very different presentations, and I love them both. I go for dynamics for the day-to-day listening, but I enjoy sometimes getting into the world of that really pinpoint high resolution experience as well. But to me, this is like the imaging when you have that sharp pinpoint, almost like a porcelain Muppet Show type of thing. This is not a really nice way of saying it, but I was not the one who coined this term, but it really applies to that sort of image. However, if I want to experience that, to have that sort of focus, I'm more than glad to listen to one of my loudspeakers that can produce such image. The third one category that I want to mention, which is really critical when you are looking for things, especially loudspeakers. Loudspeakers and amplifiers are the ones that really impact most of these pairs. The third pair is the frequency extremes and the mid-range. And this is basically entirely up to the loudspeaker. And imaging and dynamics is also 90% of the loudspeaker domain. Resolution and tone, that's quite a bit up to the amplifier, and the loudspeaker contributes as well. Back to the frequency extremes, when you actually, most of us, especially men, and I would say 99% of audiophiles are men, we want more bass, more high end, right? And that's what you see in the reviews, that this and that loudspeaker has better bass, and everyone starts to buy that loudspeaker. Has more top end, everyone goes for that loudspeaker. It's fantastic, phenomenal. But what you do not realize is that at a given price range, if that loudspeaker can do better with the frequency extremes, it will have to do worse, poorly, in the mid-range. This is laws of physics. This happens because loudspeaker technology is imperfect, and when you are a designer, you have to choose what are the strengths that you are going to use, and you will have to suck up and live with the compromises that it comes with. And if you want to decrease those compromises, you have to go with a technology that is of a higher order, of using higher quality parts. For example, in loudspeakers, drivers that can reproduce a wider band of frequencies. That's how you can get mid-range and bass and top extension as well. And that's my last word for you will be that do not estimate the grossly neglected mid-range, because mid-range quality is the key to your long-term satisfaction with your loudspeakers. If the mid-range is right on, then you will be able to enjoy music on it. If mid-range is deficient, even though you have great bass and great top end, it will mean that audiophile recordings that were done in a special way, they will sound great, but you will be focused on the equipment, not on the music. And the other problem with them is that non-audiophile recordings, probably, which includes 99% of your favorite music, which you really want to listen in your system, they will sound quite poorly. And on the long term, even though you have maybe 10 audiophile recordings and those sound smashing, you will want to change your loudspeaker, because other than those demo records that honestly we usually listen to with our friends only when we gather together to show what the system can do with the best of the recordings. But when you are on your own, I noticed that none of us plays those recordings often. If you are lucky, then there might be some recordings which happen to be audiophile and your favorites. For example, the Jazz at the Pawn Shop or the Cantate Domino. I really love those and I have played them to death. They fall in this category that they are recorded in a way that loudspeakers which go for frequency extremes only, they will sound phenomenal on them. But unfortunately, if the mid-range sucks, then those loudspeakers will distort these recordings and will make your brain focus on things that it hasn't noticed before. And that's not because it's revealing more, but because your focus is directed somewhere else, and you are not noticing those things that you normally notice with the same weight. Of course, if you go for a higher technological level, you also get the benefit of additional details. So many times when you make a real upgrade, then you truly hear things that you have not heard in the recording, and there's no compromise with what you have been hearing before. Yes, this does happen when you jump up a level in your system, and this happens in every category pair. So when you jump up a level, then both resolution and tone step up, both imaging and dynamic step up, frequency extremes and mid-range step up. It is possible to improve the two together. But if you use the same amount of resources and you are focusing on frequency extremes only, then you can step up the frequency extremes much more than the mid-range if you put your energy and your efforts in that alone. So I really want every audiophile to be aware of this duality of the performance parameters of loudspeakers and amplifiers, because when you upgrade, you have to know this is what happens for upgrades, and this is one of the key aspects why audio and improving audio gear is not an easy issue, why it is so complicated, and why changes that you make to your system are so ambiguous. Why one person thinks it's an upgrade and why another person will think it's not an upgrade, that you have gone the other way. Because if you want imaging, then for you a product that has better imaging but worse dynamics, it will be a clear-cut winner, a big improvement. But if your body is listening to dynamics, he won't care about sharper image. All he will hear is decreased dynamics. And that's how things are. So thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. I hope this helped you on your audio journey. If you have not done so, please like this video and subscribe. That's the only means that others will be exposed to that channel and that you will run into it in the future. And have fun. Bye bye.